All right, hello and welcome. I'm McFluffin, and today we are going to be covering the recently released Nightmare Dungeon tier lists on Maxroll. So, as many of you already know, Nightmare Dungeons are the primary endgame content right now for Diablo 4, and it's where you're going to go to get most of the sort of progression that you're trying to achieve in the game, whether it be leveling up your character, leveling up your glyphs, or maybe pushing your build to see just how far it can go in its current setup and maybe tweaking it to try to get a little bit extra out of it. So this guide is to help you figure out what are the best Nightmare Dungeons for whatever sort of progress you are trying to make at any given time, because not all Nightmare Dungeons are equal. Some are particularly good at one activity or one type of progress, while another dungeon might be better at a different one, and some dungeons are just honestly not worth your time. They're not very good at anything, and you should probably skip them, break down your sigils for material to make other sigils, and run the better dungeons. So this guide will help you figure out which dungeons you should be running at any given time. So let's go ahead and get into the different sort of tier lists we have here and how you can use those to your advantage. So let's start with the solo experience farming. This one's pretty self-explanatory. If you are running on your own, you don't have a group, and you are trying to accumulate experience and level your character as fast as possible, this is the list you are looking for. The S-tier builds are, the S-tier dungeons are going to be the ones that you can run the fastest with the most amount of density, with the most amount of XP per hour. And then the D-tier ones are going to be the ones where you just really aren't going to be able to level up quickly, and you should probably skip those. So I suggest, if you're going to use this list, be looking for S or A tier stuff, possibly B tier if it's got good affixes on it, but you're really looking for the higher tier stuff. And your goal is to kill monsters as fast as you possibly can in those dungeons and get through them. The next one we want to talk about is glyph leveling. So this seems similar to our leveling one, except the goal here is to get to the end of the dungeon as fast as possible, because the end of the dungeon is where the glyph XP actually exists. Killing enemies along the way isn't really relevant unless it's part of your objective. So what we're looking at here is how quickly can I get to that end? How quickly can I finish the objectives and actually finish the dungeon? So the S tier ones are going to be the ones you can finish the most quickly, and then the F tier ones are the ones that are going to take you the longest. As you can see in here, Champion's Demise is the lowest. It has 3 objectives in the front that you have to go and finish. If you're on your own trying to do that one by one, it takes quite a bit of time. So this isn't going to be very good for leveling your glyphs. Notice this is different than on the leveling one, where it's actually fairly high because it has pretty good density. There's a lot of XP to be gained. But again, if you're just looking to level your glyphs as fast as possible, that's not a very good option. So on this one, once again, you're looking for S tier, A tier, potentially B tier with good affixes that you can ignore throughout the dungeon, so you don't have to stop and wait. For example, the one where you have to stand in the bubble, and otherwise you'll take damage, will slow you down significantly. You're looking to go as fast as possible here, so you're looking for these dungeons with good affixes that you don't have to slow down a lot. Let's move on to group farming. For group farming, very similar to leveling, except this is more of an all-encompassing. Okay, what do we do as a group to maximize our XP, our glyph experience per hour? And group farming is different than solo because you can split up. You don't have to all be together all at once. You don't have to kill the same group of monsters. And so multi-objective options for dungeons like Champion's Demise are not a problem, because you can just split into 3, do each objective together, and it's like you did it all at the same time. It's like you had to only one objective instead of 3. So group farming is a little bit different than solo because of that, but otherwise they're fairly similar. You are looking for maximum XP per hour, getting through dungeons quickly, having high density. These are the sort of parameters that we're going for here with the group farming tier list. So if you're in a group and you're looking to maximize those things, just like the other ones, S tier, A tier are your best options. You're still looking for good glyph affixes on them, and you can do some B tier if you have really good modifiers. But S tier and A tier are your primary, and you should probably be skipping D tier and potentially C tier as well. All right, the last one we'll talk about is high tier pushing. So this is very different from all of the other ones. What we're talking about here is, let's see what our build can do with difficult enemies that are much higher level than us. How far can our build push? And when we are making a tier list on this, we're looking at, okay, what kind of enemy types are in there? And how challenging are they going to be when they do high damage? So, for example, ranged enemies tend to be pretty hard on higher tiers because they are hard to deal with. They can hit you from far away, whereas melee attackers tend to be a good bit easier. And you can just deal with them through kiting, through other means. It's a lot easier to handle that kind of content. So high tier pushing is going to come out looking a lot different than the other ones for that reason, because we're just looking at a very different set of parameters. For that reason, things like Blind Burrows and Dark Ravine look really good because they don't have a lot of challenging enemies to deal with. So if you are looking to push, this is where you should start. Do bear in mind, not all builds are going to handle really any of these tier lists exactly the same, but especially this one. Some builds will be much better at some content than others, at some enemy types than others. And so this is not a one size fits all. Look at it as a good starting place to kind of consider, okay, what dungeons might be particularly good for my build, and then customize it to the experience of the playstyle and the build that you have to make it work for you. Okay, that covers our tier lists. Hopefully that will help you in your experience with Nightmare Dungeons to be faster, more efficient, and figure out the best way to push your builds to the max. Have a great time in Diablo 4. Expect a lot more content from us here on this Maxroll channel in the near future. And I will see you all again real soon.